This is Radio Prague International coming to you from the Czech capital.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sierra Krieger-Wolf and you're listening to Czechia in 30 Minutes, the show where we give you a rundown of what's recently been happening in the country in just half an hour. Coming up on today's show, TrutnOFF Open Air celebrates its tribal chief Václav Havel on what would have been his 90th birthday. Wild boars are increasingly venturing into urban areas drawn by food and safety, and Miss Czech Republic on her Japanese and Moravian identity, beauty, and Miss Universe. All that coming up in a bit, but first, here's Romana Grajcerova with today's top headlines.
News.
Extreme, exceptional or significant drought, meaning one of the three highest levels of drought, is currently affecting more than 88% of the Czech Republic, while extreme drought is currently affecting 60% of the country. The figure applies to soil depths of up to 1 meter. Bioclimatologist Miroslav Trnka announced that this year, together with last year, is creating a significant dry spell, although it has not yet reached the lows recorded between 2015 and 2019. Although the August heat wave has ended, the much-needed rainfall has yet to arrive. Forecast models expect rain from Monday. Only 0.2% of the Czech Republic is currently completely free from drought. Around 300 Czech citizens have been evacuated in connection with a large wildfire near the Croatian resort town of Omiš, Czech Foreign Ministry spokesman Adam Čorgol told Czech press agency today. Croatian firefighters have been battling the extensive blaze since last night. According to local authorities, around 1,000 people have had to leave the area. No fatalities have been reported. The spokesman said there were also no reports of serious injuries among Czech citizens. Some tourists left the area on their own, while others are staying at evacuation centers in Omiš and Split, according to the spokesman. A Czech council is on site and is in contact with local authorities and security forces. The Czech army is recruiting 2,997 soldiers this year, according to Defense Minister Jaromír Zuna. The army had originally planned to recruit 2,250 people. Prime Minister Andrej Babiš said at today's military oath ceremony in Vyškov that the army has secured funding at the level of 2% of GDP and that the government will approve next year's budget by the end of September. In 2014, NATO allies committed to spending 2% of GDP on defense by 2025 in response to Russia's annexation of Crimea. Last year, at the NATO summit in The Hague, they adopted a new target of 5% by 2035, with 3.5% allocated to direct defense spending. The Czech Republic failed to meet the 2% commitment last year, and the government is not currently expecting to meet it this year either. Among NATO allies, the Czech Republic ranks near the bottom in terms of defense spending. Banks and building societies provided 40.4 billion Czech crowns in mortgage loans in July. Compared with July last year, this represents a 7% increase, while mortgage lending fell by 17% compared with June. New mortgages, excluding refinancing, declined by 16% month-on-month to 30.8 billion Czech crowns. Average interest rates rose to 4.9%, up from 4.79% in June. The figures come from the Czech Banking Association's Hypomonitor statistics. Scrapping the 9th grade of primary school would likely lead to poorer educational outcomes, increase the number of young people entering the labor market without sufficient qualifications, and place an excessive burden on the education system. Experts from several organizations agreed on this in a joint statement. The possibility of abolishing the 9th grade of primary schools was recently raised by Chamber of Deputies Speaker and SPD party leader Tomio Tomio Okamura and Prime Minister Andrej Babiš. However, Education Minister Robert Plaga said the proposal is not currently under consideration. In mid-July, Okamura proposed abolishing the 9th grade of primary schools, as is the case in Germany, Poland and Hungary. He said the move could save the state budget 50 million Czech crowns a year. According to Plaga, however, the claimed savings are unrealistic. And now let's look at the weather. On Saturday it will be clear or mostly clear, with high cloud gradually increasing from the west in Bohemia during the afternoon. Highs will range from 31 degrees Celsius to 35 degrees Celsius, reaching up to 36 degrees Celsius in Bohemia.
This year's edition of the legendary TrutnOFF Open Air Music Festival is dedicated to Václav Havel, marking what would have been his 90th birthday. Even when Havel was president, he was simply known as the tribal chief at the rock festival, which he had supported since its underground days. Romana Grajcerova has more.
Já vám děkuji za váš potlesk. A tomu svému náčelnictví bych rád přidal jednu informaci, možná to nevíte. Já nejsem náčelníkem pouze.
TrutnOFF's Festival Grounds, August 2008. A pub inside a tent and underground stage. In front of a packed tent, the president and the tribal chief in one person sat down at the microphone. At the age of 71, Havel managed to entertain an audience generations younger with a humorous story. Applause and laughter followed almost every sentence of his account of visiting a Brazilian indigenous tribe, where he managed to throw a spear at a target better than the tribe's chief. According to the tribe's traditions, this meant that Havel should become the new chief. Havel returned to the Czech Republic, but at least among the festival's fans, the title of tribal chief stayed with him forever.
Když v 16-17 letech potkáš někoho takového, tak se ti to zaryje.
If you meet someone like that when you're 16 or 17, it gets engraved so deeply in your heart that the mark stays there forever. Havel never put himself above anyone. When you sat down and talked to him, you never walked away from the conversation feeling like an idiot. You were Havel's equal.
Když jsi s ním seděl, tak jako nikdy si z toho rozhovoru neodešel jako blbec.
Martin Vichet, the organizer of TrutnOFF Open Air, recalled his first meeting with Havel in an interview with Czech radio. The festival, whose origins date back to 1984, is considered the oldest Czech rock festival and is often nicknamed the Czech Woodstock. The festival is known for its broad musical range, with very different performers sharing the same stage, as well as for its overlaps into non-musical areas, particularly ecology, politics and religion. This year's edition also began with an open-air service followed by rock bands. Alongside regular ecumenical services and music, the festival program also includes discussions on cultural, societal and political topics, as well as theater performances, exhibitions and film screenings.
Že sem jezdí za takovou, jak to říkal už náš náčelník, spikleneckou.
People come here for that atmosphere of a community, as our tribal chief used to call it, and the festival is not just about music, but also about the moment of coming together. It is also about the non-musical activities that take place over those 4 days. Another special feature of the festival is that each year it is dedicated to a particular event or personality.
Ročně někomu nebo něčemu věnován.
Previous editions have been dedicated, for example, to Charter 77 and the anniversary of the end of the Second World War. This year the festival marks what would have been Václav Havel's 90th birthday. Havel remains present at the festival every year, not only through its atmosphere, but also through t-shirts featuring his image, which continue to be popular not only among those who remember him, but also among younger people. This year's headliners include the New York-based Romani punk band Gogol Bordello, as well as Czech bands Lucie, Monkey Business or the Plastic People of the Universe.
Thank you, Romana Grajcerova, for that report. Wild boars are increasingly moving into urban areas across the Czech Republic. Once largely confined to forests, they are now appearing in city parks, gardens, and residential neighborhoods, scavenging for food. Danielle Lazarova has the details.
Reportings of sightings of wild boar in urban areas, including the suburbs of big cities such as Prague and Brno, have been on the rise in recent years, as has pressure on local municipalities for them to deal with the problem. Miloš Ježek of the Faculty of Forestry and Wood Sciences at the Czech University of Life Sciences Prague says this migration is a problem that is accelerating across Europe due to a combination of several factors.
One factor is the relatively easy access to food they can find in cities, specifically in parks, gardens, abandoned areas and similar places. At the same time, they feel relatively safe in urban environments because wild boars are generally not hunted there. Greater hunting pressure around cities may actually encourage wild boars to move in among people. They are very good at distinguishing between people who hunt them and those who do not. They can also tell which places have been hunted in recent years. There is strong pressure to reduce wild boar numbers because of the damage they cause. Numerous studies, not only on wild boars, have shown that animals respond to hunting pressure. They adapt both to pressure from humans and, for example, to pressure from natural predators.
According to Ježek, intensive hunting around urban areas may even encourage boars to move closer to people. Food and shelter remain the animals' main priorities. Compost heaps containing fruit and vegetable scraps, rubbish around waste bins and other food waste attract them into residential areas. In one documented case, a sow with piglets learned to knock over a bio-waste container so as to reach its contents. Cities have adopted different measures to deal with the problem. While culling is difficult in populated areas, some municipalities trap the animals or use so-called scent fences, which are treated with animal repellents to discourage boars from entering specific locations. The method is safe for people, including children, but the repellent must be renewed roughly every 3 months. Ježek says prevention should focus on making urban areas less attractive for this breed and provide fewer hiding places for them.
We should minimize places where wild boars can find shelter, such as dense shrubs, woodland or overgrown parks. These areas should be maintained so they remain open and visible, making boars feel less secure.
Researchers stress that the spread of wild boars into cities is a natural trend and no reason for panic. The animals generally avoid people and prefer to flee rather than attack. The greatest risk arises when unleashed dogs confront a sow protecting her piglets, so owners are advised to keep dogs on a leash.
Je tam asi ten nejčastější důvod právě ochrana těch mladých.
The most common reason for an attack is the protection of young or when a wild boar finds itself trapped and unable to escape, which happens more often in urban environments. In those situations it may charge, but such attacks are genuinely rare.
Ty útoky jsou skutečně vzácné.
Although attacks are more common in cities than in forests or open countryside, animal experts say they can usually be avoided by keeping a safe distance, allowing the animal an escape route, and resisting the temptation to approach or follow wildlife.
That report from Danielle Lazarova.
This is Radio Prague, Czechoslovakia.
On the occasion of our 90th anniversary, Radio Prague International has decided to celebrate this milestone with you. Our voice has been broadcast to the world for 9 decades. Now it is time for your voice to be heard on our program. Tell us your story. Why do you listen to Radio Prague International? Since when have you known Radio Prague International, and what does Radio Prague International mean to you today? And last but not least, choose one story from our archive and tell us why it resonated with you. And how to participate? You can either send us an email at english@radio.cz with a recording answering the questions above, send us your phone number so we can call you and record your answers, or send us your answers in written form and we will read them for you. Your responses can be anonymous, or they can include your name if you wish. In any case, they will become a central part of our special broadcast culminating in August, the month when Radio Prague International was established in 1936. For 90 years, our station has been broadcasting stories of people, places and events that we believe would be valuable to you. Now, in these uncertain times, more than ever, it is your story that would be of value to us. Share it with us, share it with the world. The floor is yours.
The 22-year-old Miss Czech Republic, Sofia Osako, will represent the country at Miss Universe in Puerto Rico this November. Born to a Moravian mother and a Japanese father and raised speaking mostly English, she spoke to Anna Marie Regner about how the competition has deepened her connection to Czech culture, why beauty pageants still matter, and how she hopes to showcase Czechia on the world stage.
First of all, congratulations on winning Miss Czech Republic, Miss Universe. Why did you join the competition in the first place?
Honestly, it's a question that is harder to answer than you'd think, and the answer really changes every single time I answer it. But it would be, of course, to explore Latin America because the competition is being taken place in November in Puerto Rico. Also to really highlight the Czech beauty that we have here in our country.
You're a bit of an unusual Czech beauty, some might say, because of your background. You're Czech, Japanese, and you grew up speaking mostly English. How has this changed what it is to represent Czechia on the world stage for you?
I think more than anything, this experience taught me how to be more Czech. I think that sounds quite ironic because I am representing the Czech Republic and I am Czech and I did grow up here my whole life. But speaking English, even with my parents speaking English, with my siblings speaking English, this was the first time that I had the opportunity to enter a world where I would have to be speaking Czech to an extent where it isn't just casual, but also in a professional extent. And it really let me indulge into Czech culture and to really appreciate everything that Czech Republic has to offer.
Your mother's side is from Moravia, if I'm correct. How has that side of your family shaped who you are?
It's very interesting because I have two families, one in Japan and one in the Czech Republic. One is in the countryside, the Morava, and they are absolute polar opposites of one another. And I would say that I've seen both sides equally. To have a family in Morava who is just so grounded and their values are just so strong in love, family, and enjoyment of life, and just to be simply happy and what is life given to you. And whenever we do go there, the activities that we do with each other is taborak, which is fire camp, and we pekačky. You grill sausages on the fire and you play hide and seek with your grandma, your great-grandma, your cousins. I think it's just really beautiful to touch grass every now and then, and it's a memory that really brings me back and allows me to touch ground whenever I'm in a place where I feel that my nose is sticking a bit too high.
Has your mother consciously tried to preserve any specific Moravian traditions within your life?
My mom does run the brand Tradice, which is folklore fashion design, but more than the actual physical culture or like specific traditions, I think it's the way of life. My mom did grow up also in Japan from the age of 17. However, the Moravian roots are very deep within her, and it is more than just one thing that you could point out, but it is, I think, a value system that one carries within their own minds and their hearts, what they find important to them. So my mom always made sure I stayed kind to people who were working around me or just anybody who needed help around me. She always made sure that I felt that it is my duty, not just that I would want to, but it is my duty as a person to be right, to help them out for the sake of helping. And I think that is very strong in Morava. It's very different to Prague, but yeah, Moravian culture is very strong within me, I would like to say.
How would you describe your childhood between the Czech Republic and Japan, and how would you compare traditions? For example, how would you compare Christmas in those two countries?
Well, I celebrated Christmas only once in Japan, or maybe twice. And I had my aunt, and she was almost trying to convince us to get KFC because it's a really big thing there. And it sounds like a myth, but it is genuinely a really big thing to stand in line to KFC for 4 hours. They think the KFC guy is Santa Claus. Properly convinced. But in the Czech Republic, we celebrate it usually with my mom.
Beauty pageants have faced a lot of criticism for judging women primarily based on appearance. Why do you think they still have a place in society today?
Women's beauty is more important and more valuable than people would like to admit. In a way that it is not in an arrogant way, or neither is it in a literal way. I think female beauty is really what drives the world, or in a soft power way, or in a subconscious way. And beauty pageants today, it is actually a misconception. It is not judged primarily on beauty. When you get to the competition, or even in the national one, you are judged far more than your physical appearance. You're judged on your determination, your kindness, your capabilities, and your potential in really succeeding and making an impact on the world. It does not matter if you're the most beautiful. You have to be the most lovable, I guess you could say in some way as well.
What would your definition of beauty be?
My definition of beauty has always been someone who is very content with themselves. I think beauty is contentment within. When someone is looking at the ground, no matter how beautiful they may be, you will never see the full beauty shine within, because it does come from within. The female gaze is becoming much more important in today's standard of beauty, meaning that it's not just young women that are considered to be beautiful, but for me, when I look at my mom, for example, who is in her 40s, or other women who are in their later ages, which is not late, but like 40 to 50, who are really beautiful and just shining within with their cool outfits and their smiles and their great careers. I think that more than anything moves me when I think of beauty, rather than when I see a 20-year-old model, because that is something that truly has contentment within itself, and that is something that has reason to really feel proud and accomplished.
How do you feel then as a 22-year-old going into the competition, going up against someone from New Zealand, for example? Their representative is 40 years old. She is a mother. How do you feel being put in a competition that has so many different types of women in different walks of life?
I think that is really the base of the idea of why the competition happens to begin with. I think to have an age restriction to begin with was, I wouldn't say it was very right. I think all women of all ages are capable of being just as beautiful as one another. And I think having somebody to compete with, in a literal term, compete with, it's a pageant, is interesting, and I think it will teach me a lot about myself. Last time I competed, I was 18 years old, and I can say that for certain, the women who were 28, they were able to teach me things without even acknowledging the fact that they were trying to teach me anything.
How do you think these international pageants are important as an instrument of soft power for the Czech Republic?
I think Czech Republic being such a small country, we have flourished in other competitions actually in the few recent years, but it really does put us on the map. That means we have attention from the globe, the entire international community, which gives us opportunities for economical growth, for international connections.
Do you think that Japanese culture has changed your perception of beauty?
I think it has influenced my perception of beauty for sure. I think in Japan, the beauty standard there is to be more cute, to be very petite and very cutesy-tootsy. And in Czech, it's something to be more elegant, more diva, more fierce. So they are kind of contrasting in a sense, and I think having this contrast and having a mother who is, she fits into both categories. Having gone to an international school where then again, every person comes from a different background of what it means to be beautiful, I think rather than just Japan, I think my entire life has influenced me into saying what is true beauty. I am able to scope beauty in just about anybody and anything if you truly look at it the right angle.
You are currently also a university student outside of being a model and being Miss Czech Republic. What are your aspirations for the future?
I'm currently studying art history at the university here in Prague. And I think my aspirations for the future would be just to simply have the knowledge.
What do you hope to achieve from the competition in November, and how do you hope to represent the Czech Republic on the world stage?
Samozřejmě, of course, I am hoping that I achieve a high placement, at least in the top 5. I will be giving it my all with my team, and I think Czech Republic is a country that, at least in Miss Universe, we haven't been so overly prepared like the other competitions. We'd like to show that we too are a powerhouse of the beauty pageant world, and this is very niche, but those who do follow the pageants do understand that it is a lot of preparation. It is not simply you are beautiful, you walk and you do a good catwalk. No, it is months and months of preparation. It is knowledge that you have to really acquire and go out and seek out. The way I'd like to represent it is to stay true to myself. I think it is something that is actually rare within the pageant world, because it is expected to try to get you to fit into a mold that already exists for years and years and years, almost a century. For the Czech Republic, I'd like to show that we are unique in the way that we accept people for who they are and do something great for the Czech Republic in the Miss Universe competition.
That conversation with Miss Czech Republic Sofia Osako has brought us to the end of today's program here on Radio Prague International. For more news, features, interviews, photos, and videos from Czechia, visit our website at www.radio.cz. You can also browse our full archive of broadcasts and follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. From me, Sierra Krieger-Wolf, thank you for listening and have a beautiful rest of your day.